say, look, to those people out there that are watching this that still think that Julian Assange is a rapist and a hacker and a traitor and a narcissist, look, I don't blame you. It's not your fault. You have been deceived. And if you believe you're not being deceived, that's normal, because otherwise it wouldn't be deception. So just look through the smoke screen, ask people like Randy Credico, like Daniel Ellsberg, like Angela Richter, read my book and find out the truth, because it is worth it. It's about your rights and the rights of your children. So it really is about the larger implications of this case. As many of you know, I didn't want to get into the case initially because I was very much poisoned by that negative narrative that had been spread about Julian Assange. And me too, I was not able to see actually through the smokescreen in the beginning. But when I visited him in prison and I saw how states were reacting to my interventions, which I just drew objective conclusions from the findings of two of the most experienced, specialized forensic doctors, specialized in examining, torture victims, and from his living conditions. I asked those modern democracies to now apply their obligations or implement their obligations under the Anti-Torture Convention and investigate this case. And when I saw that the blatant kind of sabotage of my investigation by those states, and we're not talking about the usual worst case, worst suspects of human rights violations. We're talking about Sweden, we're talking about Britain. That also kind of showed that the Assange case is just the tip of the iceberg. And what's important is that it allows us to see through the keyhole into that parallel universe where the rule of law and democracy has already been largely undermined and neutralized. Our institutions no longer work. If you can invade a country based on lies, which is one of the supreme crimes since the foundations of the United Nations, if you can torture hundreds of people, expose thousands to abuse, murder people, and no one is being prosecuted except whistleblowers and journalists, what I always say in that simple sentence, what we're witnessing is that it becomes a crime to tell the truth, and that the criminals are no longer prosecuted, but those that tell the truth are being prosecuted. I don't want to leave a world to my children where it has become a crime to tell the truth. That's to me is the definition of a tyranny. And what we see is, this is not just about the US. Yes, the US is the most powerful country right now in the world, and there's this Espionage Act, but the UK is learning fast. They interpret their Official Secrets Act just in the same way. They refused to investigate their own torture, participation in the torture program. They introduced legislation, domestic legislation in the UK to try to prevent prosecution of their own soldiers for war crimes and torture and so on. And now, just 2 weeks ago, Sweden, which was the safe haven for the free press in the world, which is why WikiLeaks wanted to establish itself in 2010 there, and which also triggered that whole story. Sweden, the Swedish government proposed to Parliament in Sweden that it should be criminalized, become a crime in Swedish law to disclose classified information, not that would threaten national security, but that only would be prejudicial to the relations of Sweden with another country or an international organization. That is now a firm proposal in Swedish Parliament by the Swedish government since 2 weeks, that this should become a crime. So what we see is a proliferation of this secrecy. And so, they will not stop with prosecuting, Assange. This is the beginning of it all. And so if we don't, stop it here and now, and if we're not firm with this, we will have lost more than a battle. We'll have lost a whole war.